Hello everyone. So in today's video we will see about the foreign trade. What was the situation of foreign trade during the British rule, okay, or the time of or at the time of independence, okay. Now let's see. India has been an important trading nation since ancient times, as we all know that, okay. But the restrictive policy of commodity production, trade, and tariff pursued by colonial government adversely affected the structure, composition, and volume of India's foreign trade. So, what does this mean? That the British government, you made policy regarding the foreign trade, but it was restrictive. Okay, it was restrictive, and it adversely affected the India's foreign trade. How it affected the India's foreign trade? We will see this. Consequently, India became an exporter of primary products such as raw silk, cotton, wool, sugar, indigo, jute, etc., and importer of finished consumer goods like cotton, silk, and woolen clothes. Now, as we have studied earlier, that the twofold motive of the British government was first to change the status of India from exporter of finished goods to the exporter of raw materials. Second, to change the status of India to the importer of finished goods. Okay, exporter of raw materials and importer of finished goods. So this happened. This is elaborated in this section. Okay, so how it happened? Exporter of primary goods and importer of finished goods. Okay, and capital goods like machinery produced in the factories of Britain. Okay, so as we studied earlier that there was hardly any capital goods industry, so capital goods were imported from Britain, which they used to produce. Okay, Britain maintained a monopoly control over India's export and import. So, the British government maintained the monopoly, okay, the single rule over the India's export and imports. So, as a result, more than half of India's foreign trade was restricted to Britain, while the rest was allowed with a few countries like China, Sri Lanka, and Persia. Okay, so what happened? Due to monopoly, what Britishers did? Britishers restricted the trade more than 50% of trade with Britain only. Okay, means what happened? British government decided that 50% of the trade will be done with the Britain, or I would say 50% of the import and export will be done with the Britain or British industry. Okay, and the remaining 50% will be done with a few selected countries like China, Sri Lanka, and Iran. Okay. Now, next thing what happened? The opening of Suez Canal further intensified the British control over. Now, earlier what happened? What used to happen? That this is the map. Okay. So earlier from UK, okay, from UK, the import and export used to go all over around from Africa and then to India. Okay, but after opening of Suez Canal, this is an artificial Suez Canal. Now there was the duration for the import and export, the cost uh, while traveling which used to incur was reduced. Okay, because of this Suez Canal. Okay, so this Suez Canal helped Britishers in the import and export, or I would say helped Britishers in intensifying the control over the India's foreign trade. Okay, the most important characteristic of India's foreign trade throughout the colonial period was the generation of large export surplus. So one thing which we have to understand, that there was a export surplus. Okay, means there was large number of export and less number of imports. Okay, but this surplus came at a huge cost of the country's economy. But what happened? This export surplus did not benefit the India's economy. Okay, so what purpose, for what purpose this export surplus was used? We will see this. this export surplus did not result in any flow of gold or silver. So this export surplus did not benefit India. Okay, rather this was used to make the payments for expenses incurred by an office set up by the colonial government. So the surplus, the extra money which British used to get from the import and from the export, they spend that money to set up the office, their office in Britain. Okay, and what else? Expenses were used, expenses on war. The surplus which they used to get were spent on war, which they were fighting with different countries. Okay, so this is how the India's foreign trade was, I would say, misused. Okay, it was not used for the India's benefit. Okay, and what by this what happened? The import of invisible items means services, all which led to the drain of wealth. So the money which was of Indians, okay, which should be used, which might have been used for India's development, India's growth, that went from India to Britain, or that went from India to use, and it was used by the Britain. Okay, so this is called drain of Indian wealth. Okay, when the money which is for the Indian purpose but it is used by the British, that is called drain of Indian wealth. Okay, so this was the condition of the foreign trade of India. Okay, now the second and most important thing is demographic condition. What was the demographic condition, okay, during the colonial period? So now here the first thing which we have to see is the first collected through census was in 1881. Okay, so now question can be here like when was the first census held, first official census held, in which year? So it was held in 1881. Okay, now what was the demographic condition? Before 1921, India was in the first stage of demographic transition. The second stage began after the 1921. Okay, however, neither the total population of India nor the rate of population growth at this stage was very high. So 1921, okay, this 1921 is also called year of Great Divide. This 1921 is called year of Great Divide. Why? Because before 1921 there was a situation of high birth rate and high death rate. Okay, before 1921 there was a situation of high birth rate and high death rate, but after 1921 what happened? There was a situation of low birth rate and low death rate. I would say there was a spread of awareness, okay, regarding the health and hygiene. So this is called year of 1921, year of Great Divide, and it is explained in detail in your geography book of class 12th. Okay, you can see the explanation there. There are 3 stages which are explained in the geography book. Okay, now what is the second situation of demographic condition? The various social development indicators were not all quiet. Now social development indicators there are various indicators like literacy rate, mortality rate, health and hygiene, etc. So these were not good. Okay, now what was the issue here? What was the problem here? The overall literacy level was less than 16%. Means, see, today is around 70% literacy rate. That time literacy level was overall, including male and female both, that was less than 16%. So the situation was very worse there. Out of this, the female literacy level was at low about 7%. See, overall was 16%, but if we say about the female literacy, then it was around 7%. Okay, so the literacy rate was very low. Now the second indicator which says about the health. So public public health facilities were either unavailable to a large chunks of population. Okay, so what happened? What was the status of health facility? The health facilities were unavailable, but when available, it was inadequate. It was not sufficient for the people. Okay, so what happened because of this? Consequently, water and airborne disease were on the rampant. Means what, there was a high cases of disease, waterborne disease and airborne disease, and because of that, overall mortality rate was very high. Okay, because public health facilities were not adequate, so this led to the increase in the disease of waterborne and airborne, and because of this, mortality rate was also high. Okay. And if we say about the particularly the infant mortality rate, okay, means shishu mrityu dar, so it was quite alarming. How? We can state the facts here. Okay, it was about 218 per thousand. Okay, so whenever we count the mortality rate, infant mortality rate, we count per thousand, we count at the rate of per thousand. So that time it was 218 per thousand, but now the present data, it is 33 per thousand, not percent, it is per thousand. So out of thousand, right now at present, in the 2020 or 23, present rate is, out of 1000 children, 33 die before attaining the age of 1 year. Okay, what is infant mortality rate? When the infant die before attaining the age of 1 year, that is called infant mortality rate. Means out of 1000 children, out of 1000 infant, 33 infants die before attaining the age of 1 year. Okay, now what is life expectancy? Means on an average, a person, for how many years a person can live in a country. Okay, what is life expectancy? It means on an average, for how many years the people of a country can live, can survive. Okay, that is called life expectancy. So it was low that time, the life expectancy was low, 32 years. Okay, means the people were on an average, some might be living 40 years, 45 years, but some might be living 30 years, 20 years. So that time the average was 32 years, but now the present data is 69 years. That is quite good, but not that much good. Okay, so in the absence of reliable data, what is next point here? In the absence of reliable data, it is difficult to specify the extent of poverty. Okay, because that time, the data of that time is not available. Okay, so poverty cannot be measured that time. Okay, so but we can say that that time there was extensive poverty in India during the colonial period, and this worsened the situation of India. Because of poverty, you will not be able to get the health facilities, you will not be able to get education, and this is the main point, main from which this is the root cause of all the problems. Okay, so this was the demographic profile and the foreign trade situation during the British period. Next we will do the occupational structure. Okay, thank you.